It was supposed to be a light-hearted morning on Lorraine, full of laughter, nostalgia, and stories of classic rock. But what started as a friendly interview between Lorraine Kelly and music legend Sir Rod Stewart quickly turned into one of the most shocking live television moments of the year. Lorraine had been looking forward to this episode for weeks. Rod Stewart, the man behind hits like Maggie May and Sailing, was not just a musical guest but someone she'd always admired. The producers had arranged a cozy studio setup, a small stage with a guitar stand, soft lighting, and a large screen playing snippets of Rod's concerts through the decades. As the cameras rolled, Lorraine welcomed him with her usual warmth. "Rod, it's such a pleasure to have you here again. How are you feeling this morning?" Rod grinned, his trademark charm on full display. "I'm still standing, Lorraine, and still rocking. Just don't ask me to dance this early," he joked, making the crew laugh. The first few minutes went perfectly, talk of his tour, his new album, and even a few laughs about his famous love for football and fancy cars. But the mood shifted when Lorraine brought up a topic that wasn't on the pre-approved list: Rod's controversial comments about modern pop stars. "Rod," she began, with a teasing but pointed smile, "you've said before that today's singers rely too much on auto-tune and don't have the same passion as artists from your generation. Do you really think none of them measure up?" Rod chuckled, but his eyes sharpened. "I didn't say none, Lorraine. But come on, music's changed. Too much technology, not enough heart." Lorraine leaned forward. "But don't you think that's a bit unfair? There are incredible artists today, Adele, Ed Sheeran, even Harry Styles, who pour their souls into their music." Rod shrugged. "Adele's brilliant, sure. But some of these young lads, they care more about TikTok than their craft." The studio grew quieter. Lorraine, known for keeping her guests at ease, decided to challenge him gently. "Rod, maybe that's just evolution. Every generation does things differently. You can't expect them all to sound like the 70s. Rod crossed his legs, his smile fading. "Lorraine, I've been in this business longer than some of these kids have been alive. I've earned the right to say what I think." That's when the tension thickened. Lorraine tried to steer the conversation back to his tour, but Rod wasn't done. "You know what the problem is," he said suddenly. "Shows like this don't let people speak their minds anymore. Everything's got to be soft and polished, even rock and roll." Lorraine blinked in surprise. "Rod, that's not fair." "No, it's true," he interrupted. "You invite people on, ask them safe questions, and when someone actually says something real, everyone gets nervous." The audience gasped softly. Lorraine straightened in her chair, her professional smile tightening. "Rod, I think we've always treated our guests with respect here. But there's a difference between being honest and being rude." Rod's laugh was sharp now. "Oh, so now I'm rude for saying music's gone downhill. Give me a break, Lorraine." The producer's voice crackled in Lorraine's earpiece. "Move on." Cut to break. But she stayed calm, her Scottish accent firm. "Rod, I invited you here to celebrate your music, not to criticize others. If that's a problem, perhaps we should end this early." Rod leaned back, clearly irritated. "Maybe you should, love." The silence that followed was electric. Lorraine gave a small nod to the floor manager. "All right then, we'll take a short break," she said, her tone cool but controlled. The show cut to commercial, and the studio erupted. Rod stood up, adjusting his jacket. "I've done hundreds of interviews, Lorraine, but I've never been talked down to like that." Lorraine rose too, unflinching. "And I've hosted thousands, Rod, and never had a guest disrespect my show." The cameras were still off, but the tension was very real. Rod's manager stepped in, whispering urgently to calm things down, but it was too late. Lorraine turned to the crew and said quietly, "We won't be continuing this segment." Moments later, as viewers came back from the break, Lorraine appeared alone on camera, her expression composed but serious. "Welcome back. We had to cut our interview with Sir Rod Stewart short due to some differences of opinion. We wish him all the best on his tour." The clip spread across social media like wildfire. Fans were divided, some sided with Rod, praising him for speaking his mind, while others defended Lorraine, calling her grace under pressure. Within hours, the hashtag Rod vs Lorraine was trending. The full segment was replayed millions of times online, and even late-night shows weighed in. But behind the scenes, Lorraine sat quietly in her dressing room, sipping tea, replaying the exchange in her mind. She wasn't angry, just disappointed. Rod Stewart was a legend, yes, but she'd expected better. What she didn't know was that Rod himself would soon post a public message that would shock everyone, and change how fans saw the whole situation forever. The next morning, social media was still on fire. Every entertainment outlet from Daily Mail to Good Morning Britain was running the headline. Rod Stewart walks off Lorraine after heated exchange. Clips from the show were being replayed endlessly. Rod's sharp tone, Lorraine's calm but firm reaction, the abrupt cut to commercials. Memes, edits, and opinion videos were everywhere. Lorraine arrived at ITV early that morning, holding her cup of coffee, scrolling through her phone. She'd been through scandals before, but this one hit differently. She had grown up listening to Rod's songs, she'd admired his energy and generosity over the years. Now, it felt like something precious had cracked in public. Her producer, Hannah, met her in the hallway. "Lorraine, you won't believe this, Rod posted something on Instagram an hour ago." Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "Oh, did he?" Hannah handed her the phone. The post showed a black and white photo of Rod on stage, holding his mic, with the caption, "Greater than, maybe I went too far yesterday. I've always spoken my mind, but I respect Lorraine Kelly and her team. We had a disagreement, but no hard feelings. Rock and roll isn't about being polite, it's about passion. Peace and love." Below, comments were pouring in, thousands of fans thanking him for apologizing, while others demanded Lorraine, accept the olive branch. Lorraine smiled softly and whispered, "Well, that's something." Still, ITV's executives weren't ready to move on so easily. They called an emergency meeting to discuss the PR situation. One suggested inviting Rod back for a friendly chat to smooth things over. Lorraine hesitated. "I don't want a staged apology," she said. "If he wants to talk, it should be real." By the end of the day, the decision was made. Lorraine would invite Rod back the following Friday. No scripts, no handlers, no rehearsed lines. Just a conversation between two people trying to clear the air. When the day came, viewers tuned in by the millions. The studio buzzed with anticipation. Lorraine sat on the same cream-colored couch as before, her nerves hidden behind her usual professional calm. The band softly played a few notes of Sailing as Rod Stewart walked onto the set. He looked different this time, no flashy jacket, no sunglasses. Just a simple black shirt and a slightly sheepish grin. The audience clapped, warmly. Lorraine stood and extended her hand. "Rod." "Lorraine." He shook her hand, then smiled awkwardly. "Hope I'm still welcome." She chuckled lightly. "Always. As long as you behave." The audience laughed, breaking the tension instantly. Once seated, Lorraine began gently. "Rod, last time we saw each other, things got, let's say, a little heated." Rod sighed. "Yeah, I think I let my mouth run away with me." Lorraine nodded. "That's fair. You're passionate, and I respect that. But it's important to remember, we're all just trying to have a good chat, not a brawl." Rod grinned. "You handled it better than most would've. My wife said I looked like a grumpy old man." Lorraine smiled. "Well, you said it, not me." The audience burst into laughter. The atmosphere lightened further as they talked about his career, his kids, and his early struggles in music. Rod even surprised everyone by performing an acoustic version of Have I Told You Lately That I Love You, dedicating it to Lorraine and all the strong women who've put up with my nonsense over the years. When the song ended, Lorraine's eyes glistened. "Rod, that was beautiful." He leaned forward, suddenly serious. "Lorraine, I do want to say something properly. What happened last week, I was out of line. I've always been proud of speaking my mind, but I shouldn't have spoken at you. You're one of the few who still do real interviews, not gossip. And I respect that." The studio went silent. Lorraine took a breath, visibly moved. "Thank you, Rod. It takes a real man to admit that on live television." Rod smiled. "It takes a real woman to give him a second chance." The audience applauded loudly, some even standing up. Cameras zoomed in on Lorraine's face. She was smiling again, genuinely this time. After the show, social media exploded, but in a completely different way. #Rod and Lorraine started trending, with fans calling it the redemption episode. One viewer tweeted, "That's how adults handle conflict, with grace and humor." Another wrote, "This was TV history, respect to both." Later that day, Lorraine posted a photo of her and Rod on Instagram, both laughing together behind the scenes. The caption read, "Greater than, all is forgiven. Life's too short for grudges, and too long to miss out on great music. Red Heart Mike hashtag peace and love." Rod replied in the comments with a wink emoji and a line from one of his songs. "Greater than, the first cut is the deepest, but forgiveness heals faster." By evening, both Lorraine and Rod were trending globally, this time for all the right reasons. Behind the scenes, Lorraine finally exhaled. She looked at Hannah and said softly, "You know, that could have gone terribly wrong." Hannah smiled. "Or perfectly right. People needed to see that." Lorraine nodded. "Maybe we both did." And somewhere out there, as the sun set over London, Rod Stewart's raspy voice echoed through the airwaves, not as a man who stormed off a set, but as one who walked back on with humility and heart.